Okay, here is Kiwi, our 4-year-old Labrador bitch, making her nest for the puppies. Some people say she's doing this scrabbling about because she's creating nest. Other people say it's because she's uncomfortable. And I think the panting might indicate the latter, that she's a bit uncomfortable. So she's spoilt and gets special treats because she's feeling stressed. She was stressed for quite a long time, a whole day and a half, and eventually she had a litter of 9 puppies. Unfortunately, she had to have a cesarean and 2 of the puppies died, but she ended up with 9, which are beautiful and very, very keen to feed right from the start. There were 6 bitches and 3 dogs. And they were very tiny, less than 1 kilogram each. Probably half a kilogram each.
White paws.
And some of them had pink paws, and some had black paws. But they all had perfect little Labrador noses. And their eyes are closed, and will be for another 10 days. And their front legs remind me of satin evening gloves. And their nails are incredibly sharp and scratchy, so in a few days we'll trim those so that they don't scratch Kiwi. They do a lot of sleeping and a lot of scrabbling about. When they smell Mum, which is how they're finding her at the moment, they smell her, they do a lot of squeaking, which sounds a bit like Sooty from Sooty and Sweep. But in between feeding, they just go to sleep in a little heap. Generally, they all find each other and sleep together. There's no way of telling them apart at the moment. They all look very similar. There's one particularly big dog, but other than that, the rest of them all look the same, really. And in their sleep, they do a lot of this twitching, which is to do with their nervous system developing, apparently. But they seem very contented. And Kiwi's very happy to feed them and clean them up. So they've got quite a nice life. We've got them on vet beds, which we wash regularly, and towels, and they just mooch about, really. But here's somebody picking one of them up. As you can see, its eyes are still closed, but it can smell things. Oh, and that was Boris. Boris is a puppy we kept from the last litter that Kiwi had, and he's now 2. And he's rather intrigued by the puppies. He's not quite sure what they are, but he thinks they smell quite interesting. And Kiwi is not very keen on having him near them. She'd never growl at him because she loves him to bits, but she is blanking him, which he takes as a sign he should behave himself. So he doesn't really come in. He just looks and smells and wonders what on earth they are. He thinks perhaps they might be rats from the garden, but maybe not. They do a lot of sleeping there. Boris is very fond of his owner. They do a lot of sleeping, and they do smell interesting. But Boris has been told to spend most of his time out, not with the puppies. So he's feeling a little bit left out, because up until now he's been the puppy in the house, and now there are 9 more. And Kiwi is ignoring him largely, which he feels very uncomfortable about. So he's doing a lot of trying to ingratiate himself with his mother. But she's having none of it. She just wants to talk to her puppies, who just eat and sleep and wriggle about a bit. And Kiwi cleans them all up. Which they don't particularly like. Their little front legs go stretch out. Say, no, Mum, no! But it's too late. She's got them cleaned up. And then she'll move on to the next one until the whole litter are squeaky clean, and then she'll feed them all. One by one. But they're very happy to put up with whatever she dishes out, really. And she'll in a minute she'll lie back and just let them all feed. Feeding 9 of them at once is quite tricky, so she often just feeds a few at a time while others are sleeping. And then later on she'll feed them too. But they all seem to sleep right contentedly, so we think they're probably all getting everything they need. But Kiwi's losing weight. We're feeding her masses of food. She has breakfast, lunch, dinner, 11's, supper, and she's still losing weight. But she's got gallons of milk as well, so she's doing very well. So it won't be too long now before we think about weaning them. When they're about 3 or 4 weeks old, we'll start introducing a bit of food, I think. But in the meantime, they're just, here they are in a fruit bowl, which they fit in very nicely, and they really don't mind. They're just having a little snooze. They're blissfully unaware of everything that's going on at the moment. They're very tiny. They just snuffle about, really. But they don't seem to care too much about anything. This one's got a slightly crinkly coat, which might turn into something, a pretty thick coat later on, or a wavy coat. Labradors aren't supposed to have a wavy coat, but it might do. Some of them are a slightly brown colour, which may mean that they've got a good undercoat. Labradors can sometimes have a brown undercoat and then a top coat. So we'll wait to see. In a few days' time, we're going to put some collars on them, coloured collars, so that we'll start to be able to tell them apart and see if we can distinguish any characters amongst them. Oh, these two are having a little bit of a filming session as little baby gun dogs, which they will be one day. Well, hopefully they'll be big gun dogs. Oh, here they are with coloured collars. So every puppy has a collar on, so we can hopefully tell them apart. And the dogs are red, purple, and blue, and the bitches are the other colours. But as yet, there's no particular characters. They can move about quite a lot, but they are still crawling. They're not walking. Oh, there we are. Is that orange? Oh, and a little eye opening. So we must be getting towards 10 days old now. And they're quite a lot bigger. It looks as though it's having a dream, but it's not. What would it have to dream about? Mum, probably. But I think it's just its nervous system developing. Now they're starting to begin to walk about a bit. Whoops. And this will be at about 12 days, I think. And they've grown a lot. We did try weighing them now and then, and they got above a kilo. So now they are doing really well, I think. They're very strong, and it's a real bun fight when it comes to feeding time. The blue dog, the big dog, has got a blue collar on, and he's always first in for the feast. And but when they know Mum's around, I think he's wagging his tail, isn't he? Which is great. So they're getting quite grown up, really. And Kiwi loves them to bits, but she does feel a little bit overwhelmed when they all go for her at once. So, who have we got there? The orange one, a red one, the red dog and the blue dog. The dogs are often at the forefront of everything. But Kiwi's sort of suffering it a bit now. It's only going to get more hard work for her, I think. So, but she's putting up with it. She's just a bit tempted to come out to the kitchen and see if she can have some food all the time, because she's eternally hungry. Well, it's because she's feeding so many of them. But she's doing really, really well. She's such a sweet bitch. She doesn't, never gets cross with them. Occasionally gets bored with them, but not much. And here, the red dog has tried hard to get in, but he's sort of giving up now because he just can't get in. Everybody else is in the way. So I think he's going to give up in a minute, yeah, and walk away. But Kiwi's a very good girl. A very good girl. And she'll do this for a little while and then she'll get up and walk away. But at night, if I come down in the middle of the night, she's generally laid flat out, half asleep, with several of the puppies feeding and several others having fed and conked out. So she's doing really well. And she's never trodden on any of them or anything. We've got those white bars there to try and stop her from rolling on any of them so they can escape. But actually they're getting to the size now, where they might get their heads caught. That's my worry, but I don't think they will. So I think they're probably going to be moving out of there soon and into a proper run in the kitchen. But they seem quite happy in their playpen. It's about 5 feet, 6 feet by 6 feet, something like that. So they've got plenty of room to move about. Now here we have Boris from the previous litter, who met a dog while we were out walking, and the dog was a little bit aggressive looking, although apparently it wasn't, so his owner said, but it looked a bit aggressive to Boris. So Boris decided to adopt the tactic of playing and running away. This was his way of getting to grips with this dog, so he just ran away, and the dog seemed to think it was okay. And Boris just ran as fast as he could, and the dog didn't seem to mind. And eventually they got on quite well. But thankfully Boris is quite quick. So his tactics seemed to work. The other dog thought he was a bit strange, but he didn't mind him. And so in the end Boris could make friends with him. And they ended up having a chat, and it was okay. Well done, Boris.